Hello, my name is Nikolai Burov from Burov Advisory. 2 weeks before Christmas and New Year not so far. And today I would like to discuss about very important things. Investor, property investor, small business owner and foreign investor would like to take an advantage for opportunity to think about what the investment strategy would be for the next year. And we've got a good reason for it. Let's discuss about new rules introduced by APRA, Australian Prudential Regulation Authority, will come in effect 1st of February 2026. This rule will restrict cap for borrowing for investor and owner-occupier to top up his loan more than 20%. At the same time, the rule, Australian Prudential Regulation Authority, will cover the borrowing capacity. So the loan has to be more than 6 times annual income. How they affect this Australian market is significantly. Year by year, Australian market and Australian investor, including foreign investor, come to Australia and buy the property. But the foreign investor was restricted from the April 2025 to buy establishment dwelling. And this is a restriction is applicable for 31st of March 2027. So the government would like to promote and help Australian investor and foreign investor to buy property in Australia. As you know, that property market is booming one way or another. Like the tenants, they had to get tenancy. Like we put the property on the market a few months ago. Just for the first day, we have 38 applications. The people just booming in a door to get property. And if you think about how the Australian property market works, the people who buying property in Australia benefit in 2 ways. First one, they've got rental income. Another one, they've got value grow. So the property grow. Let's say you purchase property for 200,000 and in few years the property becomes 300,000. Let's say you borrow 80% from the initial property, which is worth 200,000 or 400,000. And today, from the 1st of April or 1st of February 2026, you're not able to borrow more than 20% top up. So what does it mean? This means that it will be difficult for Australian investor to get money to buy investment property. And if this happen, and this is probably will happen because the government made the decision and it's already come to effect from 1st of February 2026, what the question do I have in my mind that how the potential tenant will get a property? If you think about that investors, current investors who hold the property, will sell the property for any price, I don't think it happen. Probably not happen. They will sell, of course, but for the new buyer, new purchaser, new investor who would like to become an investor, it will be very difficult to get money because regardless your property is grow up or doesn't grow up, you can't borrow more than 20% top up of your loan and you can't physically borrow more than 6 times your annual income. I'm worried about that in this case, the rental payment for the property will grow up same 20% or maybe more, depend of the market. We don't have at the moment significant government program to support people who would like to rent a property because the rental property is not just only out of the Australian dream to have ownership of the property, no at all. It's for many family because the cost of the living is rising. Because become common often that people just living on a rent. And the question is where we can get rental property. The building is going down because of the cost of the fund, the cost of the construction and the cost of the price. And because the price is going up, it's very difficult to borrow money. Particularly when the government set up a restriction on the borrowing capacity. My question is, how possible for people to borrow more money to buy more property? I understand that idea of the government is quite good to promote new dwelling, new development, new property. But let's say you purchase a property off the plan, and the off the plan property depends on the type of the property. Sometimes takes up to 2 or 4 years to finish construction, because needed to get an approval, needed to get everything required to be done with a local city council, with another authority, building authority, etc., and find the builder who will build a home. And everything take time. So my question is, how suddenly potential tenant from 1st of February 2026 will have more advantage to find in a tenant property? Of course, probably not. But at the moment, I would like to discuss only about borrowing capacity, because what has happened if today is the 12th of December 2025, any investor have an opportunity to apply to the lender to pay up his loan, to have more money. It's included owner-occupier and included investment. And of course, you can use this money to renovate your existing home, or you use this money to purchase an investment. And I believe, like what has happened in the last few years when the government introduced, since 2010, the government started to introduce different rules and restrictions for borrowing. Like, for instance, instead of the interest-only loan, more promoting the principal to interest-only loan. And of course, as a professional investor, I 100% support principal to interest loan. I believe that this is the only loan has to be involved, regardless you owner-occupier or property investor, because the property is a debt. And in reality, psychologically, when people say, oh, I would like to invest in a property, eventually they understand that they would like to invest in particular assets, not a debt. But if they will grow more and more, it would be very difficult to maintain the property debt to pay out in particular time. However, because the property was growing, nobody cares. Yes, of course, some area, it's very difficult to get property grow. Let's say you've got a new area, and this new area people purchased, let's say, 3-5 years ago. And today the cost of the living for 3-5 years is go dramatically. And what has happened that the value of this property, instead of to grow up, is a stand, is a flat. And what has happened more, people started to come up with some particular areas. So today we've got number of different areas where the Australian Prudential Regulation Authority is thinking about that people will default. They can lose the job, or simply just not have enough money to support particular investments they've got, or to have particular house they bought it. So what's the solutions? The solution from my side is very simple. To apply to a lender now, let's say you've got a loan in particular banking institution. Talk to the lender and ask, what options do I have? Let's say if they say, okay, you can apply now, so it's a regulation will not apply. We will finish the application. Do it, please. Absolutely do it. But what is more important, contact please your real estate agent who manage your property and ask them about valuation. But this is valuation, it's okay. The bank can handle it as well. You can get a valuation from a real estate agency if you worry about it. But what is more important is a property report. So what is needed to have a clear understanding. You've got an investment property. What particular repairs needed to do, or maybe what particular renovation needed to do, or let's say the roof leaking, or door is broken, or garage door doesn't work anymore. These things where you need to become aware if you contact your agent and ask him to do it now. Why is doing now is very important? Because a real estate agent is busy people. They've got a plan when needed to come to do inspection report and check the property. However, this may be out of the scope. This may be too late for you to apply. And if you don't know how much is the money required to prepare for renovate your property or do some urgent repairs or do some repairs for another few years, what can you do after 1st of February? You can't borrow more than 20% anyway. So if what I do now, I'm, of course, do the preparation properly. I contact my real estate agent. I talking to my banking institution and top up my loans. And I know some property required to do. We're doing renovation on a few property. Some of the property required to leak repair on a roof. Some property required and other things to do. We're talking to the tenant, and tenant's happy for us to do the job. And the boss, we and tenant who living in a property, we all of us understand that if we will miss an opportunity, it will be harder to do it. Because if the tenants will got leaking roof after 1st of February 2026, investor may be not able to borrow money. So, and this is what I think the potential compliance issue will come. So from one side, a managing agent would like to repair the property. From another side, current investor would like to apply for the bank for them top up the loan to have money for a repair or renovation of the property, which is requested by tenant, but not able to do it. And what's happened then? You've got legal case. So to avoid this situation, please act today. And this is very important. Other thing I would like to about, this is good or bad. Like in my situation, what I'm thinking about as a professional investor for many years, and we've got good portfolio property outside of the superannuation, inside superannuation, I hold property in particular trust as well. I only can say that nobody winner. I can't find any winner. The investor will not win. The people who own the property will not win. The people from overseas who would like to buy property will not win. So how is the win? Let's say I've got a wallet, and in my wallet I've got 5 notes for $20. And let's say somebody says to me, oh, Nick, you can use only 20 because you can't manage another 80. In my view, any restriction of the managing the money have negative and a positive. And of course, most of the loser, what I see, would be the tenant, because rate is going up. Cost of the repair may be not possible to do. Very hard to find a property. I'm not never say that the government doing wrong things, because I only see my property market from my small side. I am small business owner and I'm only professional investor. But of course the government looking after the whole picture, of course. My question is only that I believe we require to set up some particular fund for people who struggle with rental property. Because we needed to allocate particular fund to support people or have some particular notice to the banking institution and financial company to say, let's okay, you can borrow more than 20% of the property if this money you would like to spend on existing property for renovation. If you would like to help the tenant to live in this property, because what is if the property become unlivable, investor become unborrowable, the bank become unlent. So what is happening on total market? Total market, it could be collapse. Of course, I believe that we need to develop additional rules. I'm not saying that, of course, needed to have some particular government program to support lower income people. This is, of course, it's not only required, it must. But if you see at the moment that if the rental income, cost of the living, impossible to repair, you can't borrow money, everything, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what has happened? Where's the market? And of course, not surprised that many Australians, unfortunately, very unfortunately, going to live in another country. Let's say today, I spoke in one of the agency who doing people sending overseas, helping to relocate his home to the Japan, for instance. And of course, they're going to Japan to find a better life, to have a wages, to have ability to buy the home, because the cost of the living and cost of the home and cost of the borrowing is cheaper compared to Australia. And what happened with Australia? And what happened with these people who will go to Japan to work? Let's say they go to Japan, establish himself, everything good, fantastic for 20 years, and then they decide to come back. And when they decide to come back, how they buy property in Australia? How they invest in Australia if so many restrictions? We needed to have different solutions to clear started what can and what can't to buy. We understand that every accountant knows that if you've got an investment property and you borrow money to buy new property, this would be could be deductible for the new property borrowings, not for existing property. This is understandable. But if the restrictions come up and investor, professional investor can't buy more property, what has happened then? Where the people get money? What about negative gearing? We was talking about negative gearing, but in reality, today the cost of the living becomes so high that most of the money needed to spend to pay city council rate, insurance, another thing, clothing, children education. It's a cost of living up and up and up. You can't compare to Japan, of course. And this is, of course, we establishing business consulting in Japan, that we can work and we are fine. But what is not fine, we needed to don't forget who we are. We needed to don't forget that we are Australian, and we have to look about Australian people, about people who rented property, about investor who would like to help for tenant to have his home. We have to think about how it look after this particular tenant. We have to know that, yes, after a few years, property needed to do the renovation. An investor needed to have money to do the renovation. So we needed to have an ability to borrow money. And on and on and on. As I mentioned, started before, of course, today we have chance. Today is the 12th of December when I shooting this video. And if you apply and talk to your banking institution, talk to your real estate investor who manages the property and get a proper property investor report to see what's happened with the property and do properly and apply to the bank, start at the purpose of the loan and everything, etc. This is very important. And of course, for people who would like to go to live in Japan, please think about how you come back. And I believe that many people who will leave Australia to live in Japan eventually will come back. I believe Australia and Japan, we have to work together and just working some years over there, some years over there, some years in Melbourne, some years in Tokyo or Fukuoka, whatever the area they would like to go. Because another more important thing is where we get qualified people to develop Australia. Australia my home, and I'm care about. And I believe so you too. Thank you very much for your attention. I wish you well luck today, and I wish you very happy, very merry New Year's. Thank you very much. See you. Bye-bye.